How's everybody doing this morning? I first want to say thank you. Thank you. Every last one of you could be somewhere else, especially when you saw I was doing the talk this morning. A lot of you could have said, no, it ain't G, I'm not interested. So I'm grateful for your time. Money we could always get back, but time we can't. And I don't take all of you being here for granted. The other reason why I'm grateful is I'm grateful for G. I told G that I never wanted to be a part of a men's group. Never. Because most of the men's group that I have seen, can I be honest? I'm going to say a lot of this morning. A lot of men's group I've seen was an alpha male leading a bunch of beta males trying to figure out how to be an alpha male. I didn't need that. But when I came to CAM, I saw an alpha male leading a bunch of alpha males. And that told me a lot about G. How many of you consider yourself alphas, leaders? Do you have any idea the level of leadership you have to be an alpha leading alphas? A male lion leading male lions. So I knew it was the right environment for me. And as I began to come more and more to CAM, it started to help me figure out who I am as a father, as a black man. And then G and I and D. Scott, we started linking up outside and having conversations. And I started to learn even more about what it means to be a father, what it means to be a black father. And so when he trusted me with doing the talk this morning, you have to understand how grateful I am. I've done this all over the world for the last decade. But I was telling G this morning that I feel more on purpose doing it here than I've done anywhere else. And you'll understand why once we get into it. Now, I'm going to say a lot of stuff this morning. And some of it you are not going to agree with. So I want to help you with tune in your listening. Is that okay? I don't want you to listen for agreement. And I don't want you to listen for disagreement. Because if you listen for agreement or disagreement, you're going to miss half the conversation. I just want you to listen to listen. Listen like you would listen to a song. Just let it wash over you. What applies to you, like G said, great, let it apply. If it doesn't apply, great, let it fly. I'm not here to be right. Are y'all with me? But I'm here to share some ideas that can help you get to where you want to go. I'm here to offer some keys and some tools to spiritual, mental, and emotional freedom. Can y'all get with that? For those of you who don't know me, I was born in 1984 in the Bay Area. Any Bay Area cats in here? Got one. Okay. My mom got addicted to crack 6 months after I was born. I went to 14 schools as a kid as a result. I grew up in crack houses for the first 8 years of my life. It was so normal, I thought everybody lived in a crack house. I seen people shoot up. I watched people get killed. And then I was molested and held for ransom by a drug dealer that my mama owed money to. When I was 8 years old, I met my father for the first time. Now, the problem with this situation was my mom would drop me off at my grandma's house before she would go off on weekend binges. Can anybody relate? And she was supposed to pick me up Sunday morning. But instead, this Chico DeBarge looking dude showed up. Who in here know who Chico is? Come on, man. Y'all young cats need to Google Chico. If you look at a picture of my dad, I swear to God, the dude looked like Chico DeBarge. But this dude shows up the next morning talking about he's my daddy. My mama don't want me no more, and I'm coming to live with him. Now, how many of you know that would traumatize a kid? Because I'm looking at this dude like, who is you? And where's my mama? And I'm looking at my grandma like, you really finna let me walk out the house with this dude? And then he gave me a whooping for being disrespectful. I'm like, bruh, we already off to a wrong start. I don't know you and you putting your hands on me? And then he took me to live with his family. And then I experienced more abuse for the next 6 years until I threatened to kill him. Told my cousin I was going to cut his throat while he was asleep. I had already had it planned out. I knew that being a minor, that there's a good chance I'm going to get out at 18. So he's going to be dead and I'll be walking free. Next thing I know, I found myself on a bus from Atlanta, Georgia, back to California to live with my grandmother. And then I graduated high school at 17, took off to the military. Because I figured if I get away from everybody I know that caused me trouble, then I'll be good. Only problem is, trouble followed me. Can anybody relate? I married the first girl who said she loved me. And then I beat her ass until she left. I'm not proud of it, but it is part of my story. And I'll get into that in a minute. But when she finally got the courage to leave, I got tired. Tired of people leaving. I got pissed off at God. Anybody ever get pissed off at God? Anybody ever ask God, the f did I do to deserve this? I didn't ask to be here. Why I got to be born in this situation? And so, when you're frustrated and tired and you don't have any more answers, what do? I'll tell you what I did. I ran in the bathroom with a loaded gun, put it in my mouth, pulled the trigger. And the only thing that saved me was what? God. The gun didn't go off. And when I heard the click, it was instant regret. It was like, oh, shit. I'm in the middle of crying, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, God. Woo! I almost blew my head off. And it was instant regret because I realized in that moment I didn't want to die. I just didn't know how to live. But I still didn't know what to do with all the pain that I was feeling. So I did what any sane, rational human being would do. I started drinking. And I started drinking till I couldn't see straight. Only to then get in trouble and end up a convicted felon at 19. And married the second girl who said she loved me by the age 20 because I was homeless and needed somewhere to stay. All of this has happened before my 20th birthday. Now today, I'm an international speaker, coach, about to be two-time author. I'm on my second million. I'm married to my best friend who I've never laid a hand on besides the bedroom, you know what I'm saying? I'm a father of two who will never experience the level of pain that I went through. Can y'all hear me? I reconnected with my mother and helped her get off drugs before she passed away. Me and my father are best friends today. And I'm on my way to see him in 2 weeks. Because this is his first grandbaby by me. My father calls me and tells me he loves me every day. I can't tell you how much my soul needed that, even though for 20 years I thought I didn't. I've helped hundreds of families personally reconnect in generational feuds, misunderstandings, and grudges. I've helped grown people grow from children to adults. How many of you grown folks know what I'm talking about? And I've helped thousands of families with the same information I'm about to give you this morning. I'm not saying that to impress you. I'm saying this because I want you to understand that what I'm going to share with you this morning has nothing to do with just something I read. It's how I saved my life. Can y'all hear me? I'm one of the most emotionally healthy people you'll ever meet. And I'm not a tough guy. So I'm going to say some things that might irritate you. Please don't try to fight me in the parking lot. I cannot fight. Just being real. The muscles you see is for exhibition only. Now let me tell you why I'm doing this. How many of you ever heard of Willie Lynch? Raise your hand. Now Willie Lynch was the trainer for slave masters. Willie Lynch understood the psychology of breaking the mind without breaking the body. And when Willie Lynch couldn't make it to the shores of Virginia, he wrote a letter. It was basically a manual to how to train the slaves. I always wondered, how does one, now my vanilla brothers and sisters in here, listen, I mean, vanilla brothers in here. I'm so used to doing this in front of a white audience. I want you to understand, well, I'm going to share this in a minute. But I want you to understand what I'm about to share has nothing to do with you. Does that make sense? We're just talking about history. What I couldn't understand was, how could one little old white lady or one little old white man control 100 slaves? Big old black dudes that look like D. Scott. How? Because they had them psychologically psyched out. That's how. And Willie Lynch taught him how to do it. And 10 years ago, for some reason, God just put it on my heart. Read that letter. And when I read the letter, and some people argue whether or not it's real or not. But whether or not the letter is real, how many of you can agree that the effects of that letter is real? Turn the light-skinned slaves against the dark-skinned slaves. Rape the mother in front of the father so she lose trust in him. If you've never read the letter, read it. And you'll see why in our community we still have the struggles we have today. Because Willie Lynch made a guarantee. He said, if you install this or instill this or condition one generation, they will teach it to themselves for 400 years. When I read that letter, God immediately said to me, if Willie Lynch can install it in one generation, you're going to uninstall it in one generation. But the question is how? And that's what we're going to talk about this morning comes into play. Brothers, I'm going to offer you white privilege this morning. Y'all laughing, but I'm serious. And not all white people have white privilege. Watch. There's a difference between systemic racism and white privilege. Systemic racism is physical. It's laws. It's policies. You can't wear your hair like that for this wrestling match. You can't live in this neighborhood. Don't loan to these people. 2 different sentencing laws. Are y'all with me? That's systemic racism. But white privilege is a mentality. And not all of my vanilla brothers have it. The mentality is that I could be, do, and have whatever I please, and I don't need anybody's permission or forgiveness. What that really is spiritual, mental, and emotional freedom. We only call it white privilege because only rich white men throughout the centuries have been able to express that level of freedom without their life being threatened. Can y'all hear me? We've been confusing systemic racism with the mentality of spiritual, mental, and emotional freedom. And even though we've been free for so long, physically, how many of you can agree, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, most of us are still in bondage? I'm here to offer you that level of freedom this morning. Anybody in here suffer from self-doubt? I want you to understand that self-doubt is unnatural. Who got kids? Who got toddlers like under 5? Self-doubt. Do they have any? No.
Not at all.
That's the original design. I want you to look at it this way. Imagine you were born. This represents possibility, infinite possibility. This marker represents your mind. When you were born, your mind was free. And it can go anywhere it can conceive. Are y'all with me? But how do you control 8 billion people with that level of free thinking? You can't. So systems have to be put in place. Let's create the education system. Let's create the religious system. Let's condition them to police each other. Are y'all with me? Let's set up media to control what they see and what they hear. What did Jesus say? Faith comes by what? Hearing. And all of a sudden, this free mind gets boxed in. Back in the old days, when kings and queens would have children, the first thing that would happen is the teachers would take the child. This is in Scripture. The teachers would take the child for the first 7 years. The reason being is because you are supposed to lead. So we can't have you thinking like everybody else. So we can't let the mother raise the child. We have to train the child to think and act like a king or a queen. Does that make sense? Because for the first 7 years of your life, 50% of what you believe is hardwired into your brain. 50% of what you believe today and how you act and what you think is important and not important, how to survive, and not, all that, 50% before you were 7. Now think about the environments you grew up in and everything you've seen before the age 7. Another 35% by the time you were 14. Which is why around that age, who got teenage boys? I know what I'm doing. They start getting their own identity. Because for the last 7 years, they didn't figured out who they wanted to model after. And then by the time you're 21, 85% of what you believe and how you act in the world and what you think is important and not important, 85% by the time you're 21. And by the time you're 35, 100% hardwired. And people just say, well, this is just the way I am. And I'm here to tell you it's not. My point is that we were taught that we've been conditioned. And self-doubt does not come from potential. Self-doubt doesn't come from what you're capable of. Self-doubt comes from conditioning, which the definition of conditioning is how you were trained to behave. The challenge is we were never taught how to recondition. We were just given religion. I was talking to a gentleman last night. He says, you know, I'm working on myself. I just give it up to God. I said, well, you're in trouble. Because God gave the dominion to you. Let us make man in our image and let them have dominion. Which means you got all the power. You've got God's character and likeness. Now, I've done a really great job of not cussing this morning. Are y'all still with me? Are we all tuned in? Okay, because y'all quiet. Okay. All right. And a lot of religious folks say, Steve, you can't say God and fuck in the same sentence. I said, you're taking the Lord's name in vain. I said, that tells me you don't know the Lord's name. Because when Moses went to the top of the hill, he said, who should I tell them sent me? Anybody know what God said? Tell them, I am sent me. Moses said, I am what? He said, I am that I am. Meaning, I am whoever it is they need me to be. I am sickness. I am wealth. I am health. I am poverty. They have dominion. Now, what's the first two words you use to describe yourself? Anybody connecting the dots? If the first two words you use to describe yourself is I am, and God said his name was I am, then when you go to describe yourself, when you go to speak, you are recognizing that you are with a small g. I told you, some of y'all are rocked by what I'm saying because what you've been taught won't allow you to see yourself that big, but let me help you understand. I'm not talking about big G. Because this word simply means creator. I am not big G. I didn't create the entire universe. But I am of my Father's character and likeness. Which means, and he gave me dominion, which means I'm the creator of my reality. Through my thoughts, feelings, and actions. I'm creating every single second of what I experience. Because the Bible says to renew your mind. And as a man thinketh in his... Now, most people think when they hear the word heart, they point here. But the Greek word for heart is subconscious. When the Greeks wrote that, they meant subconscious mind. As a man thinketh in his subconscious mind, so shall he be. And in the first 7 years, My job is to develop your subconscious mind to box you in. That's why every dictator that takes over a new country, every colonizer that takes over a new country, the first thing they reform is what? The school system. Because if I change the school system, then I can ensure my power for the next generation. Are y'all with me? Yeah. Because if I box you in, you'll never figure out. Even though you want to, you can't seem to pull it together. It's because I know how your mind works and you don't. Are y'all with me? Can I have a volunteer to just erase that for me? Anybody? Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm going to share this, and then we're going to jump right into it. I needed to say all that because I wanted to prepare your listening for what you're about to get. I want you to imagine being born with one car. And you have to keep that car your whole life. It's like a Social Security number. You can never trade it in, you can never sell it. It's the only car you get to drive for the rest of your life. Now I want you to imagine never getting the owner's manual to it, and you were told not to trust mechanics. Can you picture that? For the first few years, it's fine. The car's brand new. What happens when that car starts to act up? You have no idea where to look for the problem. And even if you did find the problem, you don't know how to fix it. And you don't trust anybody else to look at it. And even if you did trust somebody else, you're hoping that they read the manual and can tell you what's wrong with it and how to fix it. And if they can't figure out what's wrong with it and get you to fix it, then you just think, something's wrong with my car. I'm sharing that because some of you, whether you're willing to admit it or not, you're sitting there thinking something's wrong with you. And I'm telling you there's nothing wrong with you, other than the fact that you think something's wrong with you. You were just never given the owner's manual to learn how to retrain your mind. Are y'all with me? Now, remember when I said taking the Lord's name in vain? When the first two words you use to describe yourself is I am, and it's followed by I am not worthy, I am not deserving, I am not good enough, you are taking the Lord's name in vain. Because you are not recognizing that you were created in His image and likeness. And to say that you are not worthy, deserving, or good enough is to say that the one that created you, the essence of who you are, is not worthy, deserving, or good enough. It's an insult to your Creator. Now, are y'all still with me? Anybody ready to cancel me yet? All right. Can anybody share with me, just for a few moments, just quick, 30 seconds, what have you gotten so far, and what do you want to get out of the rest of our time together? Because we still got a long ways to go. Anybody?
Guidance.
Go ahead.
Guidance.
Guidance. Anyone else? Awareness? Structure? Correction. Mindset.
Reassurance to put aside fear.
Reassurance to put aside fear.
Getting rid of anticipated rejection.
Getting rid of anticipated rejection. I love it. Dr. Miles Monroe was one of my mentors. From afar. Never met him, but I study all his work. And I took on his mission a long time ago. Turn followers into leaders and leaders into agents of change. Do you have any idea how powerful you are? Look at the amount of influence the hip-hop culture has had on the whole world. Can I just keep it real? Where the hip-hop culture goes, the rest of the world follows. But look at what we're putting out. They got kids in Korea napifying their hair. You want to know what else is crazy? Oppression is a compliment. It's a compliment. Because you don't drug, cage, and tame a bunny rabbit. But you will drug, cage, and tame a lion and hope it never figures itself out. Imagine the influence you have with the trauma and not knowing how to recondition your mind. Now imagine what you could do with the keys to free yourself. Imagine the amount of influence you could create. Are y'all with me? Now, how many of you, we're going to dive in now. I can't spell, so let it go. How many of you have struggled with change? No matter what audience I speak and I do this series, because this is part of a series. No matter what audience I do this series in front of, this is the first thing that I bring up. Whether it's in front of a room full of business people, educators, or addicts. This is the first concept I bring up. Because when people come to me, and they come to me from all over the world, and usually people come to me as their last resort, because I'm pretty aggressive. Because I know who you are, even if you don't. So I'll never let you disrespect yourself in front of me. By the way, you know that's the only time God really got mad in the Bible? Is when you disrespected yourself? I digress. Because people come to me and say, Steve, I've tried everything to change. Anybody feel like that? Like I've done it all. And the truth is, they have done it all. Everything that's temporary. But they haven't done what permanently creates change. And then you get those people who say, people don't change. Anybody ever heard that before? A tiger always has its... And then because it's normal, we just go, well, that must be true. Everybody thinks that way. One of my mentors in my very early days said, if you want to become successful in life, look at what everybody else is doing and thinking and go the exact opposite direction. They only say that because they don't understand the mechanics of change. They don't have the owner's manual to their mind, and so they've tried to white knuckle change. Anybody know what that means? White knuckling? You ever heard like a dry drunk? Somebody still has the mannerisms of being a drunk but ain't been drinking? Or people that are just sitting there like, oh, I'm going to change. And they try to force themselves to do something different. It's called white knuckling. And then when that doesn't work, they just go, it's just the way I am. I'm always going to be this way because I've always been this way. And they completely give up on themselves. Did anybody know anybody like that? And I tell them, I said, the only reason why you give up on yourself is because you have no idea how to make change permanent. How many of you agree statistically I should be dead in jail, or by minimum, strung out on some type of drug. Statistically, from my upbringing, I should not be where I am today. And the only reason why I am where I am is because of what I'm about to share with you. There are 6 levels of change, or 6 types of change, or 6 dynamics to change. And most environments that you go in will only teach you the first 4. Because the first 4 gets the fastest result, but it only lasts for a short period of time. The last 2 levels of change requires way more work and commitment. Most people don't want to look at themselves in the mirror. People come to me with stuff, say, Steve, I'm stuck. I'm stuck in life. I say, you're not stuck, you're lying. Let me tell you what I'm stuck means. I'm stuck means I'm unhappy with where I'm at. I'm unwilling to do what's necessary to get to where I want to go. So I lie to myself and say I'm doing everything I can so I can sleep at night. You're not stuck. You just aren't willing to look in the mirror. So let's talk about the first level of change. The first level of change is environmental. Just changing your environment. How many of you have tried to change your environment? Change jobs, change neighborhoods, change states, to try to get a different outcome? Here's the challenge. Say this with me. Wherever I go, there I am. When you change environments, it's exciting. And you're like, remember, like little kids. Remember when you used to move when you was little kids and your parents say stuff like, new house, new rules? Can't wear your shoes in the house now, it's new carpet. How long did it take before y'all was just stomping all over the carpet with new shoes on? Because just simply changing your environment gets you excited for a short period of time, but you still take your beliefs and thoughts and ideas with you. I remember when I tried to get my mom off of drugs when I was in the military. I was living in Virginia. And I figured she never left California before. So if I get her to Virginia, she can't get in trouble. Y'all, it wasn't but 2 weeks. She came with a whole new agenda. But it only took 2 weeks for her to find the trouble. She was all up in neighborhoods I didn't even know existed in Virginia. She found the drugs and the trouble. I had to put her on the bus back to California. That didn't work. I also tried the same thing when I went to the military. I tried to change environments, thinking, again, if I get away from everybody that was causing me the pain, then the pain would stop. I'd be able to experience something new. But I took all of my beliefs, thoughts, and ideas with me. And then before long, I started running into the same people. The same people I was trying to get away from in California, I'm running into in Virginia. Can anybody relate? One of my mentors, he said, there's only about 9 or 10 bad people in the world. They just move around a lot. So I keep running into them. I couldn't understand why I ended up in the same situation. No matter how many times I move. So I would just think something's wrong with me. But that's because this level is temporary. Number 2. Emotional. Just trying to change your emotions. I'm going to protect my energy. You know people say that, right? I'm just going to stay away from these people to protect my energy. And we try to change simply by controlling our emotions. Here's the problem. Your emotions go up and down every day. Watch this. I want you to close your eyes and imagine winning the lottery. Now I want you to close your eyes and imagine somebody stealing all your money. And that's because when we try to just focus on our emotions, that means we don't understand where our emotions come from. Your emotions are just surround sound for your thoughts. Your emotions exist so that you can feel what you're thinking. Your emotions are like the dashboard on your car. It's just letting you know there's a problem here, something around this area. Let me give you an example. The emotion of anger is a signal to your brain that someone has violated your core values. Challenge is, if you don't know your values, you don't know why you're angry. You're just angry. So because you don't understand that your feelings come from your thinking, and your thinking comes from your beliefs and values, which we'll get to in a moment, then you just feel the emotion and then try to figure out what to do with the emotion. Or hurt. Hurt is a signal that an expectation you had wasn't met, and now you feel a sense of loss. But if you don't know what your expectations are, then you don't know why you hurt. You just hurt. And if you experience enough hurt, what does it turn into? Anger. Because hurt makes you vulnerable, and anger puts you on guard. Y'all still with me? Yeah. So when you just try to change your emotions, it's going to constantly feel like you're failing. Because depending on the situation will determine how you feel based on what you think about what you're seeing. And when you can't control your emotions by yourself, what do you think people do? I'll give you a hint. Happy hour. They try to change how they feel with something on the outside. Man, let me go hit this joint right quick. Take my stress level down. Let me have this drink right quick. Try to calm my nerves. And then all of a sudden, guess what? They become dependent on it. Because they have no idea how to change it or control it themselves, now they're focused on outside stimulants. So changing your emotion, it works. Temporarily. Anybody ever experienced that? The third level is physical. Just changing physically. When I was a kid, I was real skinny. Like my brother right here. You look good. But I was skinny as a kid. And I was light-skinned. And I was in Georgia for like the second half of my childhood. It was color-struck. I would get whooped on almost daily. Or picked on daily. So, when I got old enough, I started doing steroids. Trying to get big. And the bigger I got, the bigger I needed to get. Because all I could see in the mirror was that skinny kid that would constantly get whooped. Some people try to cover up their insecurities with their clothes. They don't feel good about themselves. But let me go put on these Gucci's right quick. Let me go put on this Sean John real quick. I'm dating myself at this point. They try to cover it up with how they look. Most bodybuilders have horrible confidence levels. I know, because I was one of them. But my mentor said if you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. Because they're trying to respond to I'm not good enough. And there's two ways to respond to I'm not good enough. One is to just live into it and don't do anything with your life. The second is to overcompensate. I'll show them. Watch. If you have to prove that you are not good enough, that means at some point you had to accept that you weren't good enough, and now you're going to prove that you are. Because people who know they're good enough, I ain't got to prove myself to you. Cool. So just trying to change how you look on the outside, whether it's lifting weights or changing your clothes, it doesn't matter. It will make you feel great temporarily. The fourth one is behavioral. This is the one that you find the most on like TikTok and, YouTube. They say trigger response reward. Figure out what triggers you, change your response. You get a different reward. I call that white knuckling. My wife and I went to Mexico a few years ago, and we went horseback riding. And they gave us no training on riding these horses. Zero. They just said, get on the horse, follow me. I just knew I was going to end up like Christopher Reeves. For you young folks, there's the original Superman, and he fell off a horse, and he became paralyzed. I just knew I was going to end up like Christopher Reeve, I swear. Because I had no idea how to ride a horse. But I'm on the horse, and there's this lady in front of me, my wife behind me, a trail of people behind that, and I'm just sitting here riding, and I'm like, bruh, yo, I'm really riding this horse? I knew by watching The Harder They Fall on Netflix. I was like, my mind must have absorbed it, because I'm like, yo, being a cowboy is in my blood. And then all of a sudden, the lady in front of me starts freaking out. She's losing her mind. And that horse, she's got the reins to the horse, and she's yanking it over this way, yanking it over that way. And I said, nope, she about to end up like Christopher Reeve. And she's screaming, and the horse is freaking out. And all of a sudden, from the back, all you hear is, let go of the reins. Let go of the reins. And when she let go, that horse went right back into line and followed the rest. And I said, oh, snap. I ain't controlling nothing. I said, this horse is already trained. And then it hit me. That's what happens in our minds. See, there's two parts to your mind. There's the conscious mind, which is the spirit mind, the part of you that allows you to make decisions. And there's your subconscious mind, the part way below. As the man thinketh in his heart, so shall he be. The subconscious mind. That part is where all your programming is. And 95% of your daily behavior comes from that place. And it has to. Because your mind doesn't like to think. Can't get into that right now. We ain't got that much time. But I want you to understand that the subconscious mind controls 95% of your behavior. So think of the subconscious mind like the horse. Are y'all with me? Mm-hmm. The conscious mind is the rider. Now, as long as I'm white knuckling and I got the reins to the horse, I can make it go and do anything I want it to do. This is what happens in January when people set these New Year's resolutions. And for the first few days, they're very, very disciplined. That's because all of their concentration, they got the reins to the horse. All of their concentration is on that one task. Are y'all with me? But the minute life gets in the way, the minute the kids need something, the minute the job gets stressful, they take their reins off the horse and focus their attention somewhere else. And then the horse goes right back to doing what it was programmed to do. This is why behavioral change, just trying to force yourself to change, doesn't work long term. And when people get tired of trying, they just give up. This is just the way I am. So like I said, these first 4 levels, they're all temporary. And like I said, most environments you go into, they only teach you the first 4 levels. But when the Bible says be transformed by the renewing of your mind, change your thinking. Your thinking is an effect, not a cause. Who gets that? Who doesn't get it? Okay. There's 2 permanent levels to change. You want to change permanently without having to think about it. There's 2 levels. One is your belief system. All human behavior is belief driven. Every single thing you do comes from a belief that you have. Now, we've all heard this before. But when I was in my journey of change, back when I was 20, 21, I would hear that in damn near every book I read, but nobody actually broke it down. Nobody helped me understand what a belief actually was. What word do you see in the middle of this lie? Lie. That's all a belief is. If I could give you the simplest version, the belief is a lie. Not to say it's a bad thing. It just simply means it's not factual. There's a difference between facts and beliefs. Facts you can prove over and over and over again, no matter how many times you run the scenario. Fact is, gravity exists. But belief is just an opinion. It's an emotion, exactly. It's an emotion attached to an idea. That's all a belief is. So fact is, gravity is real, yes? Belief is, I can fly. Fact is, I'm a man, yes? A belief is, I'm a bad man. Y'all get that? Watch this. I'm about to really shake some of y'all's cages right now. Fact is, a man named Jesus roamed the earth. We got historical proof. Belief is, who was he? What'd you say? Son of God. But Jewish people believe he was just a radical cult leader. An Armageddon preacher. And Muslims believe he was the last prophet. So the fact is, the man roamed the earth. But the belief is what controls the 3 major religions. Who was he? And every last one of them will kill you for what they feel is true. Are y'all with me? Wars have been fought for thousands of years, not based on fact, but based on a feeling. Because belief drives human behavior. Now notice, who's gotten to the highest levels of education, PhD and beyond? Doc. Just curious, in any of your classes, did they teach you this? No. And if you really want to know how it's been used, look up the docuseries Century of the Self. Century of the Self. And it's about how a man named Edward Bernays, the father of American propaganda, shaped our culture today through your belief system. I'll give you an example. The tobacco companies in the early, I think it's 40s and 50s, hired Edward Bernays to get more women to smoke. Because back then, only 10% of women smoke. So they said, hey, how can you get more women to smoke? He said, easy, got it, hold my beer. So he waited for the most famous parade of the year. Watch this. And he hired a group of women to march in the parade together and gave them all cigarettes. Said, smoke these while you walk. Then he went and called all the press and said, there's a group of women walking together smoking. And when the press started asking these women the questions of why are they smoking, they said to protest against the patriarchy system. We're protesting for our freedom. We should be able to do what we want to do too. Within a week, 50% of the female population started smoking. And then they started running campaigns of independence. And as they run the campaigns of independence, they have pictures of women smoking. So your mind make the association. Smoking equals rebellion. So the reason why they don't teach this stuff, even at the highest levels, is because why would I teach you the very thing I use to manipulate you? What we believe determines what we think. What we think determines how we feel. How we feel determines what we do, and what we do controls the results we get. This is what I call belief theory. I'll give you an example. Remember when I was 8 years old, father came, showed up, child, traumatized. How does an 8-year-old process that? Well, I'm telling you how this 8-year-old processed it. The women who love me will leave me. My two first relationships with women, my grandmother, and my mother, gave me up so easily to this dude I don't even know who put his hands on me. So whenever you experience a level of trauma, your mind takes a snapshot of what causes that trauma and then develops a strategy so that you never experience it ever again. It happens unconsciously in seconds. So my mind said love equals pain. The most amount of pain that I've ever experienced in my life up until that point. So never want to experience that again. So when I'm 17, I'm dating this girl, everything is great. All of a sudden, she tells me she loves me, I turn into a different person. All of a sudden, I'm thinking she's cheating all the time. Because I believe the women who love me will leave me. So I start thinking. Y'all with me? The belief is at the subconscious level. That's not what I experience on a regular basis. What I experience is the thoughts that come into my mind. But the thoughts come from y'all still with me? So I'm thinking she's cheating all the time. So if I'm thinking she's cheating all the time, because dudes, y'all know that's how we roll. If I'm thinking she's gonna leave, it ain't gonna just because I'm a douche. She gotta cheat. She gotta want to be with somebody else. She gotta be greedy. I can't be good enough. So if I think that she's cheating, what emotions do you think I felt? Anger, betrayal, hurt. And if I'm feeling angry, betrayed, and hurt, what do you think I did? Hulk smash. I redecorated the house. Anybody ever redecorate the house before, or is it just me? It's just me? It's all right. I never got a deposit back. But listen, I tore the house apart and I physically, mentally, and emotionally abused her. Because here's what I was really trying to do. I was trying to prove to her how much I loved her. Look at what you're doing to me. Look at what you're making me do. Because I was trying to protect myself emotionally. So I need you to behave the way I need you to behave so that I don't get triggered. Are y'all with me? And the moment you step out of line, I got to put you back in the line. Because for the first 7 years of my life, I grew up in crack houses and hoe houses. And what did I see? Men beating women. So to me, as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, how do you correct a woman? Pow. I was just doing what I saw. And so what do you think the result was? She left. And I said, look, see, told you she would leave. Guys, that's what a self-fulfilling prophecy looks like. You ever feel like you run through different doors and come out the same exit? That's what a self-fulfilling prophecy looks like. You are actually the one creating it. You just don't know you're the one creating it because nobody ever taught you. So you just think something's wrong with you. And I'm telling you there's nothing wrong with you other than the fact that you think something's wrong with you. You were just never given the owner's manual. So if you're going to change permanently, you have to change your belief system. The second level of change, and the last one, and then we got a little bit of time for questions, and then I'm done. I want to say I appreciate y'all for being this attentive this long. The last level of change is self-image. First time I ever went to a networking event, I was like 23, somewhere around there. And I wore this fire shark skin suit. Only problem was it wasn't shark skin, it was just shiny because I ironed it so much. Anybody ever ironed their suit before? Didn't know I wasn't supposed to put starch on the suit. And I walked into the room and immediately began to get attacked by all the white people in the room. Look at this nigga. Look at this nigga. Y'all stop laughing. I gotta wrap this up. He don't belong here. He probably doesn't have a real business. Everybody watch your purse. Watch your wallet. Don't even know what he's talking about. How many of you ever walked into a room and immediately felt uncomfortable? And I'm sitting there and I'm like horrified. Because I'm like, don't these white people know I can hear what they thinking? Anybody catch that?
Hear what they think.
And after about 20 minutes of being verbally assaulted in my mind, I said, F this place, and walked out. Got in my car and turned on a motivational mixtape. Years go by, and I learned this stuff. And I realized I'm not Miss Cleo. We found out Miss Cleo wasn't Miss Cleo. Calling me now. Scam. And I realized I couldn't read their minds. And it hurt me in the pit of my stomach when I realized what I thought they thought about me is really what I thought about me, and I was blaming it on them. See, there's a difference between identity, self-esteem, and self-image. Identity is who I say I am. Self-esteem is how I feel about who I am. But self-image is what I think you think I am. See, self-image is not what you think of me, brother. It's not even what I think of me. It's what I think he thinks of me. And that controls my performance. Because that is what I respond to. You ever know you was dope? But then you walk into a room and feel like everybody underestimated me. I'm ruining some people's motivation. This is how I get jacked up. This is also how you screw up. Because you're responding to the wrong thing. What you think other people think about you is really what you think about you. And you blame it on them. And you cannot and will not outperform your self-image. It is the alpha and omega of everything you experience. And how do you know what your self-image is? It's whatever comes after I am. It's the two most powerful words you will ever speak. Even when you say I'm, you're just shortening it. The words I am activate creation. They're the keys to the kingdom. If you truly want to change to where you don't have to think about it no more and it just becomes the way you are, effortlessly, you have to challenge what you believe, change your perspectives, and create new meanings. Until you do that, you will consistently white knuckle. And even if you go to church and get all of the information, you will never have transformation. Any questions? My first book, you can get it on Amazon. It's called Start Here, 7 Steps to Living Your Best Life. It's $10. I'm actually about to release the audio for it. We recorded it. I have that and some other free audios you can have that talks about this stuff. Huh? Oh, he's actually into the mantra, and it's, if you don't challenge what you believe as an adult, a child will always run your life. Because your entire belief system was built as a child, which is why you have grown men still acting like little boys. Because it's easier to train a boy than it is to change a man. It's easier to train a boy than it is to change a man. That's why I got to get you while you're young. I get you while you're young, you're done. It will take everything you got to get out of whatever it is that I install in you. Unless you have the keys. Does that make sense? Any questions?
How did you kind of, in seeking mentorship for yourself, dismantle distrust for male figures or female figures?
It's all a part of your belief system. Everything that you struggle with today goes back to a childhood memory. So I have both coaches and mentors. And there's a difference between the two. A mentor is someone that is where I want to be, and they can offer me guidance to get there. Does that make sense? Like, I want to be buff like G. So if I say, G, can you be my mentor? G will be like, yeah. And what do I need to do? He said, you need to eat right, exercise, get some sleep. Got it. And then I go do it. That's mentorship. Coaching is different. Mentorship is 80% talking on the mentor's part, 20% listening. Coaching is 80% listening, 20% talking. So the difference is a coach listens for what's coming out of my mouth and challenges everything. Does that make sense? Because he's working with my belief system and my self-image. So mentors, typically, you find someone to mentor you, doesn't cost you anything. Coaches, you have to be willing to invest in. I've invested over $1 million in myself in the last 20 years. Because I was told a long time ago, if I pour my money into my mind, then eventually my mind will pour to my money. Does that make sense? Yeah. Or if I pour my bank account into my mind will pour into my bank account. This is why today people pay me 50 grand just to talk to them. I'm not saying that to impress you. I'm saying I invested that much in myself to create that level of authority to where people are willing to come from around the world, politicians, CEOs. I work with some of the greatest amongst us. To truly answer your question is you have to be willing to go back to those childhood memories and stories, because the reason why I'm able to help people heal so fast, I help people heal in hours what they can't do in decades of therapy. I'm not knocking therapy. There's a difference between coping and healing. Therapy teaches you how to cope. Coping is like having a trash can full of shit sitting in the living room learning how to deal with the smell. Healing is jumping in it with Clorox and bleach, wiping out every single aspect of it. And then when you're done, taking the trash can, putting it outside on the curb so the trash man can come get it. And when you walk back in the house, it's gone. That just takes more work, courage, and commitment that most people aren't willing to do. What stops most people from healing, you ready? Is their commitment to being right. Who got kids? How many of you know kids are self-centered, selfish, narcissistic, take everything personal, and it's all about them? And they have to be. Because their complete survival is on you or somebody else. So they only think about themselves. On top of that, they don't have enough life experience to explain these situations. Are y'all with me? So imagine walking into a courtroom and the judge is 8 years old, the jury is 8 years old, the prosecutor is 8 years old, the eyewitness is 8 years old, and there's no defense attorney, no cross-examination, and you the one on trial. You cooked. Well, in all of our minds, that's exactly what's taking place. We are the judge, the jury, and the executioner. Children are very black and white. You buy me these Jordans, it means you love me. You don't buy me these Jordans, it means you don't love me. You want me to suffer and everybody to pick on me. That's how kids think. And they take that thinking into their adulthood. So let me tell you when I figured this out for myself. I went to a seminar. They helped me trace my abandonment issues back to that 8-year-old scenario when my dad showed up. So I went to my mom. I was 28. I'm 39 now. I know I look 25, but I'm 39 now. Don't hate me because I'm pretty. So listen. I go to my mom. I said, "Ma, why you give me up?" I realized that's the source of my abandonment issues, that moment. Why you give me up? She said, "Boy, what you talking about? I never gave you up." I said, "Yes, you did." And I told her the whole situation. Now, here's the thing you got to understand about your memory. Only 50% of your memories are true. This is scientific. 50% of your memories are true. Maybe. Because every year you forget something. And then you want to fill it in. So whatever you forget, you try to fill it in with whatever made sense. So by the time you get older and you done told this story so many times, it done completely changed. So I said, "Yes, you did. Remember, Dad showed up, da-da-da-da-da." She said, "Boy, it didn't go down like that." I said, "What you talking about, Willis?" She said, "Your grandmother and my sister tracked your daddy down and helped him gain custody behind my back. I didn't even know there was a family court hearing. And when the courts awarded your daddy full custody, your grandma called me to drop you off and called him to come pick you up. So when I came back to get you, you were gone." I said, "Huh? Anybody just heard truth? Your stomach drop?" I realized in that moment, I manufactured my abandonment issues because I was too young to understand the situation. This is why I don't help my clients solve problems. I help them recognize there's no problem to solve. You get it? Instead of trying to fix it all, if you recognize there was nothing to fix, change your perspective. Create a new meaning. Challenge what you believe. That's what I did when I went to her. She challenged what I believed. And then she gave me an adult perspective. There's 3 sides to every story. Your side, the other person's side, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. So I made a wrongful conviction of myself without all the evidence. So maybe your friend who has issues with men or women, they're still operating solely based on the eyewitness testimony of a child with one side of the story. Does that make sense? The purpose or the goal is to put the little child back on the witness stand and allow that child to be cross-examined by an adult. It's the same thing you would do to your kids. How many of you have had your kids come to you with a horrible situation and they came with this really crazy idea of what it meant and you had to correct their perspective? And the whole purpose of you correcting their perspective, why? I can't let you grow up with this. Because if you grow up with this, it's going to crush you. So my adult mind understands the situation better than your child mind. So you correct their perspective. And what I'm saying is, if you still are suffering on any level, it's because nobody ever did for you what you would do for your child. Does that make sense? Y'all get that? No one's ever corrected your perspectives. Because we're so afraid to look in the dark. We're so afraid to face ourselves. We're so afraid. But that fear is unnecessary. Think of the fear of looking at your past and dealing with it like the boogeyman in the closet. Dad, there's a monster in the closet. There's a monster in the closet. How many of you agree? That child thinks that monster is real, so long as that door is closed. But the parent knows, do what? Open the door and show them. There's nothing in here. We're so afraid to open the door So we just learn to cope. And so hurt children grow up to become hurt adults, who then have children and unintentionally hurt those children, who then grow up to become hurt adults. That is what generational trauma looks like. But I believe we can end generational trauma in one generation. One. Martin Luther King sold the bus boycott. He told everybody that can hear him, we can end segregation in the transportation system if you all commit to walking. And walk until the job is done. And that's what they did. And for over a year, everybody walked, carpooled. Back and forth. Because they were committed. Everybody did their part. This is the same thing I propose for ending generational trauma. We can end generational trauma in one generation if you commit to healing yourself. And heal yourself until the job is done so your children never have to experience your pain. Because typically what we do is we pass down our trauma and call it protection. We try to protect our children from our pain, not realizing that we're putting our baggage on them, and now they got to carry their stuff and our stuff too. Simply because we never did the work to heal ourselves. If every single one of you commit to healing yourself and facing yourself and becoming emotionally healthy, not by coping, but by challenging what you believe, changing your perspective, and creating new meanings, if every last one of you do that, we'd have a completely different world in a single generation. Thank you.